Dr. Adrian Chen was having one of those days where the universe seemed to be reading from a completely different script than the one he had prepared. Here he was, stationed on EXO 249, a planet so far from Earth that pizza delivery would take several centuries, doing what he thought would be routine xenobiological research on some particularly interesting fungal formations. Log date 2387, day 247, he spoke into his recorder, trying to maintain a semblance of professionalism while poking at a mushroom that appeared to be giving him the side eye. The specimen continues to exhibit signs of rudimentary consciousness, though I'm beginning to suspect it's just really good at throwing shade. That's when his equipment picked up the first anomalous readings. Adrian glanced at his scanner, then did a double take so dramatic it would have won him an award in a silent film festival. The readings were off the charts, and not in the, oh, interesting scientific discovery way, but more in the, well, this is probably going to end up as a cautionary tale way. Base, we might have a situation here, he radioed, watching as the sky above him began to shimmer like a disco ball having an existential crisis. Either we're about to make first contact, or someone's throwing one hell of a party in the upper atmosphere. The response from base was surprisingly unhelpful, consisting mainly of static and what sounded suspiciously like someone dropping their coffee mug. Adrian made a mental note to file a complaint about communication protocols, assuming he survived whatever was about to happen. The Varians, as he would later learn they were called, had all the subtlety of a supernova in a library. Their ship descended from the clouds like a geometric nightmare, all angles and edges that seemed to ignore the basic principles of aerodynamics. Adrian's first thought was that somewhere, a physics professor was having a stroke. "Greetings, Earth creature," boomed a voice that managed to sound both menacing and slightly constipating. "You have been chosen for our grand experiment." Adrian raised an eyebrow, looking up at the massive ship. "Did you just assume my planetary origin? That's a bit presumptuous, don't you think?" He knew he probably shouldn't antagonize the advanced alien species, but sarcasm was his default setting in stressful situations. The silence that followed was deafening. Adrian could almost hear the aliens processing his response, probably running it through their translation matrices multiple times to make sure they hadn't misunderstood. "Your response is irrelevant," the voice finally declared. "You will be collected." "Collected?" Adrian snorted. "Look, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not really into being part of anyone's specimen collection. I've got my own research to do, and these mushrooms aren't going to study themselves." "Well, actually, they might. They're pretty weird mushrooms." Instead of a verbal response, a beam of light suddenly engulfed Adrian as he felt himself being lifted off the ground. He had time for one last transmission to base. "Log update, remember how I said this might be a first contact situation? Well, good news, I was right. Bad news, they don't seem to have a sense of humor. Also, someone might want to water my plants while I'm gone." The last thing he saw before being transported into the ship was one of his mushroom specimens seemingly waving goodbye. He made a mental note to update his research papers, if he ever got the chance, to include possible sympathy from fungi in the observations. If the Varian testing facility was meant to be intimidating, Adrian thought it was trying a bit too hard. The walls pulsed with an ominous red glow, the corridors twisted at mathematically improbable angles, and the doors made unnecessarily dramatic whooshing sounds. It reminded him of a haunted house designed by someone whose only reference for scary was a badly translated horror movie manual. "Subject will remain silent during processing," droned a robotic voice as Adrian was marched down yet another identical corridor by two guards who looked like someone had crossbred a praying mantis with a filing cabinet. "You know," Adrian mused, completely ignoring the instruction, "you guys could really benefit from some interior decorating. Maybe a few potted plants, some motivational posters. Hang in there, baby." But with a tentacled alien instead of a cat. The guards exchanged what might have been confused glances, it was hard to tell with their compound eyes, but maintained their rigid posture. Adrian was about to suggest a nice water feature when they arrived at what appeared to be the main research chamber. Chief researcher Zix, 427 was clearly designed to be imposing, standing nearly 3 meters tall with multiple appendages that seemed to be in constant motion and a head that looked like a geometry problem gone wrong. The alien practically radiated authority. The effect was somewhat undermined by what appeared to be a small piece of space lunch stuck to one of their mandibles. Human specimen, Zix, 427 announced in a voice that sounded like gravel in a blender, "You have been selected for our comprehensive psychological analysis program. We will break your mind and understand the weaknesses of your species." Adrian nodded thoughtfully. "Quick question, do you guys have a suggestion box? Because I've got some thoughts about your customer service approach." The chief researcher's eye stalks twitched in what might have been irritation. "Begin phase 1 of psychological evaluation," they commanded, ignoring Adrian's comment. What followed was perhaps the most absurd series of attempts at intimidation that Adrian had ever experienced. First, they tried sensory deprivation, placing him in a completely dark room. "How do you feel about the endless void?" a voice questioned through hidden speakers. "Reminds me of my graduate school apartment," Adrian replied cheerfully, though the void had better furniture. Next came the psychological pressure tests, a panel of Vurian scientists bombarding him with complex mathematical equations and philosophical paradoxes. "If a tree falls in a forest with no one around, does it make a sound?" "Depends," Adrian responded. "Is the tree insured? Because that sounds like a liability issue." Hour after hour, the tests continued. They tried fear inducement using holographic predators from Earth. "That's a really nice T-Rex," Adrian commented while facing down the projection, "though you got the feathers wrong. Also, I'm pretty sure they didn't breathe fire. You might be thinking of dragons." Common mistake. The Vurian frustration became increasingly evident. Junior researchers could be seen frantically taking notes while others appeared to be developing eye-twitch equivalents. Zix 427's normally perfect posture had developed a distinct slump. "Perhaps," the chief researcher announced, their voice strained, "we should proceed to more direct methods." They brought out what appeared to be their most advanced psychological analysis device, a complex machine covered in blinking lights and making impressive humming sounds. "This will map your neural pathways and expose your deepest fears," Zix 427 declared triumphantly. Adrian examined the machine with genuine interest. "Does it also do espresso? Because I could really use a caffeine fix right about now." The machine, when activated, produced a series of psychedelic patterns designed to induce discomfort and confusion. Adrian watched the swirling colors with appreciation. "You know, this reminds me of a party I went to in college, though the music was better. Have you guys ever heard of techno?" By the end of the day, 3 junior researchers had requested transfers, one had started taking notes on Adrian instead of for the experiment, and Zix 427's left eye stalk was developing a noticeable nervous tic. "Subject appears to be resistant to standard psychological manipulation techniques," one of the researchers noted in their report, trying to maintain a professional tone. "Really?" Adrian gasped in mock surprise. "And here I thought we were just having a lovely cultural exchange. Though I have to say, your icebreaker games need work." As he was led back to his containment cell, Adrian could have sworn he heard one of the junior researchers humming a tune he'd been singing during the neural mapping session. Zix 427's voice echoed down the corridor, sounding significantly less composed than before. "Prepare the advanced protocols for tomorrow. We will break this human spirit. Looking forward to it." Adrian called back cheerfully. "Will there be snacks? I feel like there should be snacks." In his cell that night, Adrian smiled to himself. If they wanted to study human psychology, they were certainly getting a crash course, just not the one they'd expected. Tomorrow would bring new tests, but for now, he was content knowing that somewhere in this facility, a very confused alien was probably Googling what exactly a dad joke was. As days turned into weeks, the Vurian testing facility began to show signs of what Adrian liked to call human contamination. It started small, like the junior researcher who asked him to explain why humans said, "take care," when leaving, leading to an hour-long discussion about human idioms that somehow evolved into a crash course on knock-knock jokes. But why must we knock repeatedly and announce our presence when the door is automated? The young Varian, whom Adrian had nicknamed Bob because their actual name sounded like a modem having hiccups, asked earnestly. "That's not the point, Bob. Try it again. Knock knock. Who has approached the threshold of my designated space?" "No, just say, who's there?" By the end of that session, 3 other junior researchers had gathered around, taking detailed notes on the proper execution of knock-knock jokes. Adrian suspected their research logs now contained more information about human humor than actual psychological analysis. The senior researchers escalated their testing protocols in response. They tried sensory overload, bombarding Adrian with cacophonous alien sounds. "This is great," Adrian shouted over the noise. "Reminds me of my neighbor's garage band, though they had better rhythm. Have you guys ever heard of jazz?" They attempted chemical manipulation, using substances designed to lower inhibitions and increase anxiety. "You know," Adrian commented, feeling particularly chatty under the influence of their truth serum, "your species would look amazing in Hawaiian shirts. Just picture it, all those appendages, so many patterns." The younger Varians started showing up to their shifts wearing small decorative accessories, a complete violation of their strict uniform protocols. One brave soul even attempted to high-five Adrian with the wrong appendage, but points for effort. Chief Researcher Zix 427's daily reports became increasingly frantic. Day 45, subject continues to resist all standard protocols. 3 junior researchers caught attempting to recreate human break room concept. Had to confiscate primitive bitter stimulant they call coffee. Day 46, subject has introduced concept of casual Friday. Must investigate potential security breach. Day 47, found research team engaged in activity called charades. Productivity down 47%. Subject claims this is team building. The breaking point came during what was supposed to be a serious psychological endurance test. Adrian had been placed in a simulation chamber designed to recreate his worst fears. Instead, he'd started teaching the monitoring team about human dance moves. No, watch, the robot dance goes like this," Adrian demonstrated, moving stiffly and mechanically. "Though I guess for you guys it's just called dancing, right?" Through the observation window, several young Varians could be seen attempting to replicate the movement, their multiple limbs creating what looked like a malfunctioning windmill convention. "This is unacceptable." Zix 427 burst into the chamber, all 4 eye stalks practically vibrating with frustration. "We are conducting serious scientific research here." "Oh good, you're here." Adrian beamed. "We were just about to start the Macarena. With all your arms, you'll be amazing at it." The senior researcher's exoskeleton turned a concerning shade of purple. "This facility has descended into chaos. Yesterday I found 2 technicians exchanging what they called high-fours in the corridor. The cafeteria staff attempted to create something called Taco Tuesday. 3 separate research teams have requested to rename their project groups using what they claim are puns." Adrian nodded sympathetically. "Change can be hard. Have you tried stress balls? Though I suppose with your physiology, you'd need stress dodecahedrons." The facility's rigid hierarchy began crumbling faster than a cookie in a black hole. Junior researchers started taking lunch breaks, a concept previously unknown in Varian culture. The traditional formal address system was gradually replaced with nicknames. Someone, Adrian had his suspicions about Bob, had started a facility-wide meme database. The final straw came when a group of young researchers approached Zix 427 with a proposal for casual appendage where Friday and a suggestion to install a ping-pong table in the break room. But what is the scientific purpose of propelling a small sphere across a horizontal plane? Zix 427 demanded. Fun, replied the researcher, using the human word because their language had no equivalent. In their private chamber that evening, Zix 427 recorded what might have been their most disturbing observation yet: the subject isn't breaking under our protocols. Instead, our protocols are breaking under the subject. Most alarming development, caught myself humming human melodic pattern called "Never Gonna Give You Up" during morning inspection. Must increase containment measures immediately. Meanwhile, in his cell, Adrian was teaching a night shift guard about the concept of stand-up comedy. So then I said, "That's not a quantum fluctuation, that's my wife." Adrian delivered the punchline with perfect timing. The guard's mandibles quivered in what had recently been established as the Vurian equivalent of a chuckle. I do not understand the correlation, but I feel compelled to emit approval sounds. That's the spirit. We'll work on the delivery. As lights dimmed for the facility's night cycle, Adrian could hear distant sounds of Varians attempting to whistle, a skill they weren't physiologically equipped for, but enthusiastically tried anyway. Somewhere, a speaker was quietly playing Earth music, and if he wasn't mistaken, those were definitely disco lights coming from the junior researcher's lab. All personnel are reminded that laboratory equipment is not to be used for what humans call light shows, no matter how groovy they may be. Zix 427's voice echoed through the corridors. But it was too late. The infection of human culture had taken root, and it was spreading faster than a viral video of a cat playing piano. The Vurian testing facility, designed to break human spirits, was instead being broken in an entirely unexpected way, by the inexorable force of human humor and pop culture. And Adrian? He was already planning tomorrow's lesson on the cultural significance of the rubber chicken. Would you like me to continue with part 3? The story is building toward an even more chaotic and entertaining climax. The day of the final experiment dawned like any other on the Vurian research station, which meant the artificial sun flickered 3 times before deciding to commit to being morning. Chief Researcher Zix 427 had assembled the entire senior staff for what they declared would be the ultimate test of human psychological resilience. Today, we deploy the molecular consciousness destabilizer, Zix 427 announced, their eye stalks twitching with desperate hope. No species has ever maintained cognitive coherence under its influence. What they didn't know was that Adrian had spent the previous evening teaching a group of junior researchers about something far more destabilizing: internet culture. And that, my friends, is what we call a Rick roll, Adrian had explained to his rapt audience. The true art lies in the unexpected deployment. The molecular consciousness destabilizer turned out to be a massive chamber filled with swirling psychedelic energies that looked like a lava lamp had a baby with the northern lights. As Adrian was led inside, he could hear the senior researchers preparing their monitoring equipment. Beginning consciousness destabilization in 3, 2, 1. The chamber hummed to life, reality began to warp and bend, and then, through the facility's speaker system, came the unmistakable opening notes of "Never Gonna Give You Up." Who accessed the audio controls? Zix 427's voice cracked with panic. The humans call it a pro-gamer move, responded a junior researcher's voice, followed by what could only be described as an alien attempt at a mic drop. Chaos erupted faster than a cat video goes viral. The security systems, programmed to respond to unauthorized audio, started flashing in rhythm with the music, but instead of their usual threatening red, they were cycling through rainbow colors, courtesy of another junior researcher who had discovered the joy of programming pranks. Order. I demand order. Zix 427 screeched, but their voice was drowned out by the sound of multiple Varians attempting to sing along to the chorus. Adrian, still in the consciousness destabilizer, was having the time of his life. You know, he called out, these colors would go great with some disco balls. As if on cue, several research drones, reprogrammed by the now thoroughly corrupted junior staff, deployed from their docks and began spinning, their metallic surfaces reflecting the psychedelic light show. The facility's main computer, confused by the conflicting commands it was receiving, decided to switch to its emergency protocol, which had been mysteriously redefined to release the memes. The holographic warning systems began projecting what appeared to be an endless stream of cat videos, Doge variations, and something that looked suspiciously like a Virian version of the "this is fine" dog. The containment protocols, a senior researcher wailed. They're all being replaced with something called keyboard cat. The rigid hierarchy that had defined Virian society for millennia crumbled like a house of cards in a tornado. Junior researchers were teaching their superiors about the concept of yeet. The facility's translation matrix, overwhelmed by the sudden influx of human internet slang, began generating error messages in the form of "LO cat speak, emergency status, can has critical failure. Much wow. Very chaos." Zix 427 stood in the center of the madness, all four eye stalks twitching independently, watching as their perfectly ordered research facility descended into what could only be described as a combination of a rave, a meme compilation, and a revolution. But the experiment," they stammered. "Oh, the experiment's going great." Adrian called out cheerfully from the destabilizer chamber, which was now playing a light show synchronized to "Sandstorm" by Darude. "We're just collecting data on a different hypothesis. I call it, the infectious nature of human culture, or how I learned to stop worrying and love the meme." The security robots, their programming thoroughly compromised by exposure to human entertainment algorithms, had formed the conga line. One of them had somehow acquired a tiny party hat. The final straw came when the facility's main artificial intelligence, designed to maintain order and discipline, began speaking entirely in movie quotes. "I'll be back," it announced as it shut down the consciousness destabilizer. "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope," it added while opening all the facility's doors. "Life, finds a way," it concluded as it initiated what appeared to be a facility-wide dance party protocol. Zix 427 watched in horror as centuries of Virian protocol and discipline evaporated in a cloud of human-inspired chaos. Their perfectly ordered experiment had turned into something that defied every scientific principle they held dear. What have you done to our facility?" they demanded, their voice barely audible over the sound of Varians attempting to do the Macarena with their multiple limbs. Adrian, now free from the chamber and thoroughly enjoying the spectacle, shrugged. "I didn't do anything. I just showed them something more powerful than any consciousness destabilizer, the unstoppable force of human joy, memes, and the occasional dad joke. But this defies all logic." Zix 427 protested. "That's the neat part," Adrian grinned, quoting a meme that was probably already spreading through the Virian communication networks. "It doesn't have to make sense to be awesome." As if to punctuate his point, a group of junior researchers chose that moment to attempt a flash mob, their movements hilariously out of sync but their enthusiasm unmatched. "Would you like me to continue with part 4? We're building towards an exciting conclusion where the Varians must decide how to handle this unprecedented contamination of their society." The Virian High Council had never convened an emergency session quite like this one. The usually austere chamber, with its towering crystalline walls and floating data displays, now featured what appeared to be a hang-in-there poster featuring a Virian attempting to dangle from an anti-gravity generator with all 6 appendages. "We have received disturbing reports from Research Facility Alpha 7, announced High Counselor Vex 892, their ceremonial headpiece tilting at what could only be described as a concerned angle. Chief Researcher Zix 427, please explain this situation." Zix 427, looking considerably less composed than during their last report, activated their presentation display. Instead of the usual formal data streams, a GIF of a cat knocking objects off a table appeared. "My sincerest apologies," they muttered, frantically tapping controls. The facility's AI has developed what it calls a meme addiction. The correct data finally appeared, showing charts of facility productivity, psychological experiment results, and what appeared to be a dramatic spike in something labeled fun metrics. "As you can see," Zix 427 began, "our attempt to study human psychological weaknesses has encountered unexpected variables." "You mean to tell us," interrupted council member Nix, 634, that instead of breaking the human spirit, this specimen has somehow infected our most advanced research facility with what you describe as viral behavioral patterns. Well, technically, Zix 427's eye stalks drooped, the human prefers to call it, teaching us how to vibe. The council chamber erupted in concerned chittering. One junior council member was observed attempting to suppress what looked suspiciously like a smile. Meanwhile, back at the facility, Adrian had been promoted from test subject to cultural exchange consultant. This wasn't an official position, the Varians didn't even have a concept for it, but after 3 different containment systems had started playing the electric slide, instead of activating force fields, the staff had collectively decided to just go with it. Today's lesson, Adrian announced to a packed observation theater originally designed for monitoring psychological torture, is about something we humans call weekend vibes. The audience of Varian scientists, still wearing their official uniforms but now adorned with various Earth-inspired accessories, one particularly bold researcher had attached tiny googly eyes to their eye stalks, took careful notes. But how can arbitrary temporal segments possess vibrational qualities? Asked a serious-looking Varian in the back. That's the beauty of it, Adrian explained. It doesn't have to make scientific sense. It's about the feeling. Feeling is not a measurable metric, the Varian protested, then paused. Although I do experience an unexplained elevation in mood when participating in what you call Casual Friday. The facility had undergone other changes too. The former interrogation rooms had been converted into recreation areas. The psychological pressure chambers now hosted weekly karaoke nights. Even the feared molecular consciousness destabilizer had found a new purpose as what Adrian called the galaxy's most epic disco ball. Back in the council chamber, the debate continued. The infection is spreading, reported Security Chief Rax 756. We've received reports of other facilities requesting what they call break room installations. 3 different research stations have submitted formal requests to establish Pizza Thursday. What is this pizza? Demanded a council member. We don't know, admitted Rax 756. But our scientists are increasingly insistent that they need it. The situation is even more serious, added another official. Our quantum communications network has been compromised. Instead of standard status updates, stations are now sending something called memes. Last week, the Gamma 9 outpost responded to a critical alert with something called a keyboard smash, followed by ROFL. A junior council aide timidly raised an appendage. If I may, our efficiency metrics have actually improved by 47% since these changes began. It seems that regular coffee breaks and something called water cooler chat have led to increased problem-solving capabilities and improved interdepartment cooperation. The High Council chamber fell silent, save for the faint sound of someone in the back humming, "Don't Stop Believin'." High Counselor Vex 892 finally spoke. Perhaps we have been approaching this situation from the wrong angle. Instead of viewing this as a containment breach, we should consider it as an unexpected research outcome. You can't be serious, protested one of the more traditional council members. Our entire society is based on order, logic, and strict adherence to protocol. And yet, Vex 892 gestured to the data displays showing the improved efficiency metrics. It appears that a little chaos might not be such a bad thing. As if to emphasize this point, the council chamber's AI chose that moment to play a short audio clip. Modern problems require modern solutions. The council members turned to stare at the ceiling in shock. Oh dear, muttered Zix 427. It appears the memes have reached the central government systems. High Counselor Vex 892 was quiet for a long moment, their eye stalks moving in the complex pattern that indicated deep thought. Finally, they spoke. Chief Researcher Zix 427, you are hereby ordered to expand this cultural exchange program. If we cannot contain this human influence, perhaps we should attempt to understand and integrate it. But the protocols, someone started to protest. The protocols, Vex 892 interrupted, like life itself, must adapt. Besides, they added, their voice dropping slightly, I must admit I find these cat videos oddly compelling. And so, as Zix, for 27 returned to the facility with their new orders, they found Adrian teaching a group of senior researchers the choreography to Thriller. You know, Adrian commented as he helped a Vurian scientist coordinate their multiple limbs, I think you guys might have just discovered something more powerful than any weapon or technology. And what is that? Asked Zix, for 27, watching their most serious researcher attempt to moonwalk. The ability to not take ourselves too seriously, Adrian grinned. That, and the universal appeal of synchronized dancing. Would you like me to proceed with the final part? Antartifact identifier equals, cosmic, comedy, part 5, type equals, text/markdown, title equals, the new normal, part 5. Hashtag the new normal, part 5. 6 months after what Vurian historians would later call, the Great Vibing, much to the confusion of traditional scholars, the changes in Vurian society had become impossible to ignore. The once rigid species had developed something that humans would recognize as a sense of humor, albeit one that still occasionally involved quantum physics jokes. The research facility Alpha 7, ground zero for this cultural revolution, had been officially redesignated as the Institute for Human-Vurian Cultural Exchange and Recreational Sciences. Its new mission statement, written in both standard Vurian and what the AI insisted on calling LOL speak, declared its purpose as understanding the power of fun, memes, and other important human concepts. Adrian, now serving as the Institute's Chief Vibing Officer, a title he had suggested as a joke but which the Varians had taken completely seriously, sat in his new office. The room, once a sterile interrogation chamber, now featured lava lamps, beanbag chairs, specially designed for Vurian physiology, and a wall of what he called greatest hits, photos of various breakthrough moments in Vurian human cultural exchange. There was the image of the first successful Vurian attempt at a high five, only 3 appendages were dislocated. Next to it, a shot of the facility's first karaoke night, featuring a group of senior researchers performing their own version of Bohemian Rhapsody, with added verses about quantum entanglement. His personal favorite showed the moment when the facility's AI had learned about April Fool's Day and proceeded to replace all official communications with binary code that, when translated, turned out to be the lyrics to Never Gonna Give You Up. Dr. Chen, his computer terminal chimed, using the classic AOL, You've Got Mail, sound effect. Another of the AI's recent obsessions, the High Council's annual review committee has arrived. Thanks, Hal, Adrian replied, having renamed the AI after it had discovered science fiction movies. And remember, what did we say about calling me doctor all the time? My bad, fam, the AI corrected itself, having recently discovered 21st century slang. The big bosses are here to yeet or delete us, no cap. We really need to work on your slang timing, Adrian muttered as he headed to the main conference room, now equipped with what the Varians called a primitive but fascinating human motivation device, a coffee machine. The review committee consisted of 5 senior council members, each trying very hard to maintain their traditional dignified demeanor despite the fact that one of them was wearing a tie, albeit around an eye stalk, and another had their ceremonial robes decorated with what appeared to be meme references. Welcome to the Institute. Adrian greeted them cheerfully. Would anyone like some coffee? We've just mastered the art of the pumpkin spice latte. Is this beverage essential for the review process? Asked one council member stiffly. Not essential, Adrian grinned, but as we say on Earth, everything's better with coffee and cookies. The cookies contain no useful nutrients, another council member observed, already on their 3rd one. The review began with a presentation of the Institute's achievements over the past 6 months. The data showed remarkable improvements in Vurian society, productivity was up, interdepartmental cooperation had reached unprecedented levels, and there had been a 300% increase in what they now measured as workplace satisfaction. But how do we know these changes are sustainable? One council member asked. What if this is merely a temporary deviation from our natural order? As if on cue, the facility's morning break alarm sounded, and the committee watched in amazement as the entire institute seamlessly transitioned into what had become known as vibe time. Researchers set aside their work, gathered in common areas, and engaged in various human-inspired social activities. A group in the physics department was having an animated discussion about quantum mechanics while playing table tennis. The xenobiology team had organized a dance contest to determine whose research proposal would get priority review. You see, Adrian explained, we haven't replaced Vurian efficiency and scientific excellence. We've just added something that makes it all more enjoyable. But what about maintaining proper discipline and focus? Another council member pressed. Watch this, Adrian said, approaching a group of junior researchers who were teaching a newly arrived team member how to do the cha-cha slide. Hey everyone, how's that quantum manifold analysis coming along? Without missing a dance step, one researcher launched into a detailed explanation of their latest breakthrough, their multiple limbs moving in perfect rhythm while they described complex mathematical concepts. The others joined in, turning the scientific discussion into something that resembled a peer review session meets dance party. Fascinating, murmured a council member. They appear to be processing complex information while engaging in recreational activity. We call it multitasking, Adrian explained. Turns out, happy scientists are more creative scientists. The tour continued through the facility, each stop revealing how human and Vurian cultures had merged in unexpected ways. The cafeteria now featured Fusion Fridays, where traditional Vurian nutrient paste was served alongside human-inspired dishes. The Varians had become particularly fond of tacos, once they figured out how to hold them with their multiple appendages. The research labs had installed inspiration corners, where scientists could take breaks to watch cat videos or practice what they called recreational emotional expression, also known as laughter. The final stop was the former molecular consciousness destabilizer chamber, now converted into what Adrian called the vibe zone. Inside, junior and senior researchers alike gathered to share ideas, engage in casual conversation, and occasionally attempt human dance moves. The walls displayed a constantly changing array of memes, each carefully curated to include both human and Vurian cultural references. This morning, Adrian noted proudly, one of our senior researchers made their first original meme. It was a bit heavy on the quantum physics, but the cat picture was used correctly. As the review committee prepared to leave, the facility's AI made one final announcement: don't forget, tomorrow is Hawaiian Shirt Thursday. Multiple appendages mean multiple patterns. The council members huddled together, discussing in low voices. Finally, their leader turned to Adrian. Dr. Chen, they began formally, then caught themselves. Adrian. When we first received reports about the changes in this facility, many feared it marked the beginning of the end for Vurian society. Instead, we find ourselves witnessing the beginning of something new. The High Council has decided not only to continue this program but to expand it. We want to establish similar cultural exchange initiatives across all our research facilities. That's amazing. Adrian beamed. Though I should warn you, once you introduce casual Fridays, there's no going back. Indeed, the council member agreed, then added with perfect timing, that's what she said. The room fell silent for a moment before erupting in laughter, some of it still slightly mechanical, but genuine nonetheless. Later that evening, as Adrian sat in his office completing his daily log, he reflected on the strange journey that had brought him here. What had started as a routine research mission on a distant planet had turned into something far more significant, a reminder that sometimes the most important scientific discoveries aren't about breaking things down, but about bringing people, or in this case, species, together. Hey Hal, he called out to the AI, what do you think about organizing an interstellar talent show? Computing likelihood of success, the AI responded, then added, YOLO, let's do it. Somewhere in the facility, a group of Varians was attempting to learn the Macarena, a junior researcher was explaining the concept of dad jokes to their superior, and the cafeteria staff was experimenting with something they called meme-worthy Mondays. The great experiment hadn't failed, it had just discovered a different kind of success. And as for the mushrooms back on EXO 249, they were still throwing shade, but now they had an appreciate audience for it.